Hey everybody, it's Christopher, and look at our battle map here. There's 3 fighters on it this time. So I suppose some introductions are in order. First, you know Draco and you know Brock. You've seen them in the first 2 videos, but this is Tetsubo. He's going to be our new combatant tonight. And we're not going to get to see a real fight between Tetsubo and Draco and Brock, but I wanted to take this video to explain how multiple combatants in the same fight work. With first edition fight, one of the things that was a bit of a frustration for me as the designer was the perception that the fight rules only worked with one-on-one combat. And while that is definitely the easiest way to do combat, it was never the intention that that was the only way to do combat. Still, that being said, I will admit in first edition, the rules for using multiple combatants in a fight were difficult. They were difficult, and so it was often easier to split up a group of characters fighting another group of characters into one-on-one battles. And in some ways, that's still a good thing. But for second edition, Aleo and I really wanted to take advantage of this, the new rules to have player groups be able to have all their player characters fighting at the same time. So how does that work exactly? Let's take a few steps on here. The first thing that we want to show you is how you do initiative for multiple characters. It's no different than anyone else, but the way that you need to track the initiative is a little bit more than just a one-on-one fight. When I do this, and you won't really be able to see this on video, but I'm using a piece of paper here that has my turn number, and I have Draco's name and Brock's and Tetsubo's name, and for each turn, I would just roll their initiative or have the players roll their initiative and control, and I would just record it. So I'm not going to bother with what their actual stats are. I'm just going to just roll some numbers so I have something to work with here. All right, Draco got 4 initiative and 5 control. Brock gets 6 initiative and 3 control, and Tetsubo gets 4 initiative and 4 control. All right, that works out pretty well for what I want to explain. So Draco has a 4, Tetsubo has a 4, and Brock has a 6. So in this case, Brock would take his actions first and would do whatever it is that he has to do, and I'll get to that in just a second. And then you would proceed in initiative order. And as each character took their action, as the director, as the game master, I would just cross off their initiative when it was taken. If someone suffered hit stun, I would modify their control. And thus, as when I'm game mastering, it's pretty easy for me to follow who goes next, who's lost their action or has their action reduced, and so on and so forth. Now, this is only a 3-way free-for-all, but if I was doing a group of 4 fighters versus 4 fighters, I would need a bigger piece of paper, I suppose, but I could use a dry erase board or a couple of pieces of paper and pretty easily keep track of everything that's going on. Now, in the dice that I just rolled, you will also notice that, that Draco and Tetsubo both got a 4. The more fighters you have on the battlefield, the higher likelihood that you're going to get simultaneous initiative. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. The formal rules for simultaneous initiative start to get a little unwieldy when you have multiple combatants. So there is, this is plainly explained in a sidebar in the rules, there is a way to handle this simplified simultaneous initiative. For characters that have simultaneous initiative, in this case Draco and Tetsubo, you just roll a separate initiative die that only applies to them. So for Draco, we get a 4, and for Tetsubo, we get a 4. And then we would have to roll again, but 5 and 5. My dice are mocking me. You get the idea anyway. I'm not going to keep going with that. And you would just use those initiative rolls just for resolving simultaneous initiative. In a multiple combatant fight, it's often easier just to say there is no real simultaneous initiative. All right, but that's how initiative works. A couple of other changes here. When a character moves in a multiple combatant fight, they are not free. Facing does matter. So I have Brock facing this way, and I've got Draco facing this way, and Tetsubo facing this way. Because when you move, you are only able to move forward or forward diagonal. So if I was going to move one range forward with Tetsubo, he could move here, or he could move here, or he could move here. Could he just do this? a lateral move like this. Yes, he can, but that replaces any other movement he does for the turn. So if a fighter wants to try to do just lateral moves, which is not the same as a sidestep, that's a command move, that's a different thing. If he just wants to do lateral moves, then he can't move forward. So movement is always, even if it's at a diagonal, is always towards an opponent or away from an opponent. You calculate range in the same way. Right here, Tetsubo is 1-2 away from Draco and 1-2 away from Brock. They're 2 away from each other as well. And likewise, knockback is always going to be away. So if Brock hit Tetsubo, he's going to knock him this way. He couldn't choose to knock him this way. He has to knock him straight back, which on a square grid is almost always going to be on the orthogonals or on the diagonals. And so it's only in a really very crowded fight would that be a problem. So that covers calculating range, movement, initiative. The one other significant change is the way that you choose your attacks. Suppose we had these two guys set up here, but instead Draco was here. So he's fighting Tetsubo and Brock is behind him. Now if Brock were to attack Draco, there is no default penalty in fight. There are no rear attacks because in fighting games, or almost all fighting games, there are no rear attacks. In fact, usually once you jump over someone, you automatically turn to face them. However, what also might come about from this is Brock might decide he doesn't want to attack Draco, but wants to attack Tetsubo. Because this is, after all, despite what it might look like on our battle grid, this is range 2. So he might be using a ranged attack, or he might be using a regular attack and just choosing to attack at range 2 with a penalty. So, can you do this? Normally, yes, you can do this, and Draco does not get in the way of this at all. However, suppose Draco wanted to hold off Tetsubo so that Brock couldn't attack him. He wanted to get in the way and intervene so that Brock could neither move closer like this or attack through to attack Tetsubo. In that case, Draco can do a maneuver check. And what a maneuver check is a contested tactics roll. We haven't had much occasion to talk about tactics. That's a reminder to myself that we might want to do that in a future video. But it's a simple skill roll of a d10 plus your tactics skill. If, in this case, if we were doing Brock and if Draco was trying to check Brock's attack here, they would make a tactics roll. Now, presuming Draco has succeeded in his roll and has beat Brock, then Brock is checked. This means that he can't move forward through Draco, nor can he attack through Draco. If Brock had succeeded, then Draco could not get in the way. Brock could move forward here. He could continue to move forward here if he had a mobile move, or he could stand here and attack through Draco. Let's suppose that Draco was successful and he checked Brock so that Brock could not attack or move through this. Brock would be unable to attack Tetsubo unless one of two things happened. He either moved in such a way, he could not move that way because that would still be forward movement. He could slowly make a lateral move around him this way, which is a very slow process, or he can try to win at another maneuver check. So on a subsequent turn, in place of his movement, he could try another maneuver check, another contested tactics roll, and if he succeeds with that, then the check condition is removed. This allows the possibility of having fighters who try to block, either because they're allies trying to shield their teammates who might be already badly damaged, or it might be something where you're being a complete glory hog and you don't want other fighters to get in the way of your massive combo. Either way, you can do that. It doesn't take an action to check someone. You just say, I am going to prevent them from going. Now, I don't have any more minis with me right now, but we could pile more guys onto this map. Let's just, for the sake of it, we'll use these D12s to be you know what we're going to say these D12s are? We're going to put a 10 on each of them, and we're going to say these are thug groups. We haven't talked about thug thrashing yet, but that's what we're going to say here. All right, we've got a couple of thug groups in amongst the three fighters, and you can see that the more that you add to the battlefield, the crazier and more chaotic it could be. But As long as you are using your initiative sheet to keep track of who has gone, who has suffered hit stun and has reduced control, it's very easy to manage this because the individual actions themselves, the choice of attack, even the choice of a combo, is not a difficult procedure. As a result, you can have massive fights. You could have these three guys. Let's add some more thug groups here. We've got another D12 here. We'll put on a 10. We got a couple of D10s here. We'll make these thug groups as well. And now look what we got here. We have 3 fighters who are now taking on an army of 50 ninja. How about that? And we can run this on the same battle map without any additional difficulty beyond keeping track of initiative. Everything else runs the same as a regular combat and can move pretty swiftly, especially as these guys get knocked out. So I want to disavow anyone that Fight 2nd Edition is a game that is intended only to have one-on-one combat. It is fully flexible enough to deal with group-on-group combat, and in fact, we want all the players at the table to be able to be in on the action at the same time rather than waiting for their turn to go. So this is just a really quick overview of multiple combatants, but I hope it gave you an idea of how this would work in your games. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye.